Russia's President Vladimir Putin says he's agreed to halt attacks on Ukrainian energy infrastructure after a 90-minute phone call with his US counterpart, Donald Trump.
Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky has previously expressed support for a US proposal to broker a ceasefire, but has this morning stressed that Europe must be at the negotiating table. Well, let's go straight to our America's editor, John Lyons, who is in Washington, and our Europe Bureau Chief, Zoe Ford, who is in London. John, to you first. What do we know about the US and Russian president's phone call?
Well, James, we know that it went for over 90 minutes. Both sides are saying it went well. We also know that there will be no immediate ceasefire, which is what some people had hoped for, is that the fighting would stop immediately. In a way, it's classic sort of Vladimir Putin has, put in certain conditions and this and that. And he's very, very clever at this. He's had experience with 6 US presidents over his career in public life. But we also know that both sides, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, say they've agreed that there'll be a ceasefire, a partial ceasefire in terms of hitting both Ukrainian and Russian energy and infrastructure facilities, and that they will immediately begin serious permanent ceasefire talks in the Middle East. Now, whether that comes to anything, we don't know, but this is progress, but it's certainly not a complete ceasefire.
And Zoe, European leaders have been nervously watching on now for some weeks. What's been the reaction where you are?
Well, the reaction, James, is only just starting to trickle in. We're waiting for a press conference from Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, who's currently in Finland. He's there for defence and security talks. Finland, of course, sharing a border with Russia, just as Ukraine does. So we're waiting to hear from Mr. Zelensky. We've already heard, and it should come as no surprise, from one of Ukraine's biggest allies, France. The French President Emmanuel Macron has reiterated his position that from day one we've been promoting peace, but that cannot be achieved without Ukraine as part of those talks, that there can be no talks about Ukraine without Ukraine. We've also been hearing from the German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, the outgoing Chancellor, who has called the ceasefire on the attacks on energy infrastructure an important first step, but he said a total ceasefire must be next. And no doubt we'll see some more reaction from European leaders in the coming hours, James, particularly the UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer here in London, where I am, and where a meeting of defence chiefs from this so-called coalition of the willing is due to take place this Thursday. Of course, there is no ceasefire in Ukraine yet to speak of, a full ceasefire that is, but that coalition wanting to be ready, and discussions about potentially boots on the ground peacekeepers and even potentially rules of engagement to be spoken about. But of course, one of the sticking points from Vladimir Putin today that he announced in the Kremlin statement at least was that Russia would not allow, Russia pushed for a possible, said there would be no ceasefire without the cessation of foreign military aid and intelligence sharing. So still a lot to work through there.